Okay. For our agenda tonight, we have a continued presentation by the Town Center Signage Subcommittee. So we have Betsy Hughes and Sally Willard here, and we can pick up where we left off.
Okay.
Do you have any... Was everyone here the first time when they were here? I know we discussed it last meeting, but they weren't here. We talked a little bit.
I wasn't here.
You weren't here, but everyone else here was. So before I ask any new stuff, do you have any questions? We'll skip to it. Do you have anything new since the last time you were here? You said you watched it anyways.
Thank you for inviting us back. We appreciate that. I think in terms of the new things, one of the questions that you all asked at the last meeting was that your committee, when they make determinations for a variance, have stipulated certain conditions that must be met by whatever business it is that you approve them. And so the question was, will this supersede all the work that you've done? And so if you recall, I asked Jeff to just let me know what that question was. The question actually kind of came up in a different form at the Chamber of Commerce briefing that we did for their Government Affairs Committee. And so we sent the questions on to Town Council. And net is that the variances that you give and the specifications would still hold even with these new regulations. So those will go nowhere. The businesses that you said if you want to change have to come back to you, still will have to come back to you. So they aren't given a new lease, if you will, on doing whatever complying with this. So that was one of the new things that came up. Another issue that was raised at the last meeting was, nobody's complaining about it, so why should we do anything about it?
Yeah, I'm just going to hold you right there for one second on that, just so we can go step by step through
Okay.
So Betsy actually sent it to Town Council, and Town Council waited on it. She said, do you guys want me to read what was sent back from Town Council? You want me to paraphrase any of that? Show you?
Yeah, I think paraphrasing would be
Yeah.
fine.
So, reference to the above matter, connection requested. A variance becomes, for some purposes, part of a town's zoning bylaws, referencing cases. Alterations in non-conforming use. I just skipped ahead. As a practical matter, changes in zoning bylaws that affect particular uses or variances have the effect of making those prior uses and variances non-conforming. Alterations in non-conforming uses and structures are governed by General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Article 6 of the town zoning bylaws, and generally require determination from the permit granting authority that the alteration will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing use or structure. Second, in the absence of any concerns with notice, an unappealed grant of zoning relief, whether by variance or special permit, is binding, even where there is concern of legality or factual support of the decision. This is so because of the statutory period under 48, Section 17, to promote finality and to preclude attacks indefinitely on decisions which have already been tested in the hearing process. Third, to the extent there's a plan identified and addressed or even incorporated by reference in the decision granting zoning relief, as a general rule, that plan becomes condition of the grant, and any deviation from that plan constitutes a modification that plan constitutes a modification and requires further zoning relief. So she gave an example. Here, for example, the grant of the special sign permit for 131 Cambridge Street was granted, permitting and installing 2 wall signs in connection with the sign 2, specifically references revised renderings. Furthermore, the decision includes the condition of no other signs, even if by right, because the grant is a variance from the terms of the zoning bylaw, it became part of the zoning bylaw, and the signs are non-conforming. None of the conditions, as we understand, have been appealed following the filing at the clerk's office. And in the absence, modification of plans. But basically, they had to come, and change the signage. Even if permitted by a right, relief would nonetheless be required from the permit granting authority, meaning they have to come back to us, which is, so anything that currently has stuff on it, if we've given conditions, if we've given a variance, it still supersedes what is being proposed with this. So,
Great.
does anyone have any questions or anything to add on that before we move to the next?
Oh, so any applications that we said no other signs, even if by right, that still stands?
Yes.
Okay.
So they still have to come back to us in the same fashion we've been dealing with that. So does anyone have anything to add?
What about new applications?
New applications would have to go before this if it were to pass, what they're proposing.
Would have to go according to the zoning bylaw that they're proposing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, an applicant would have to go by that.
Okay, I have a question. So if the applicant feels he has a need, but it doesn't meet what the new laws will be, are they still allowed to come to the zoning board to seek relief if they feel as though they have a hardship?
The answer is yes. The requirements that a business would have to meet, first of all, they would apply for, like normal,
Right.
apply for a building permit. And if the building permit does not satisfy them and they want to appeal the decision, the same rules apply as to what can come before your committee as exists today. So that would not change. It's just the areas by right that would be allowed would be clearer. And so there are certain signs that businesses could have, according to this bylaw, in terms of dimensional requirements and all of that. And as long as they're doing that, then they won't need to get a permit. But if they want to go around that, then they would have to get one.
But they could seek relief.
Oh, absolutely.
This process.
Absolutely. This process will not change.
Thank you.
Okay. So everyone's good with that part of it? All right, well,
Okay.
back to you.
Okay. So one of the questions was around the existing situation today. And I wanted to kind of just back up a little bit and to reiterate that in the town center, and we're only talking the town center now, in the town center, the signage regulations are specified by our current bylaws. And those bylaws designate signage by zoning districts, BG, IG, all of that. In the town center, we actually have numerous districts represented, so that you could have a business look across the street and see a sign that they would not be allowed to have, but because that particular business is in a different district, they're allowed to have it. So it's not consistent from business to business, even within our town center, which is one of the reasons why it's confusing and frustrating for the businesses that are currently there. So I wanted to kind of point that out, that the way it's done currently is confusing. What this would do would be create a district, the town center signage district, where the rules are the same for every business. Therefore, you would not have that same situation. So I kind of wanted to point that out. I think the other is, we had talked about the aesthetic, and certainly the planning board has used the town center rules and regulations that they put together in 2009 as they've been going through and issuing special permits or permits for any sort of the buildings that are there now. And with the intent of trying to improve the overall appearance and of the town center. It's obviously, this is not something that happens overnight. It's something that will happen over the period of time, and as you can see from how they've approached it. So we've had some new buildings that, have been improvements over what has been there in the way they look and the feel that they give for our town center. So again, but the one thing that was not in those rules and regulations was signage. They had no section dealing with the issue of signage, which is the reason why it goes back to the zoning, and we have all the different zoning districts represented in the town center. So what this is going to do is going to create one set of rules for all the businesses that are in the town center district, and so that everybody knows the rules that they need to follow. It's not going to go by zoning district anymore. The town center district would be the one that would be controlled by this bylaw. And I think I'll stop there on that one.
Okay. So I have something on that one as well. Let me find my sheet here. I opted not to bring my laptop, and now I'm regretting it. Okay. So as far as what you're saying there, you're saying that the zoning districts determine the signage, not the PDD.
In the town center,
Yep.
the zoning districts determine the signage. I don't believe there's a
Okay.
PDD in the town center.
The town center overlay is a PDD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's, you're proposing this to go into the town center overlay district. So what I looked up with that in the bylaws, 8.5.8 in the town center overlay. I'll let you get to the page there. Page 8-22.
I think I must have different pages, so go ahead.
So it's 8.5.8. The planning board shall adopt and maintain design review regulations that govern the future construction and reuse of properties in the town center. Adoption and amendment to such regulations shall require such a public hearing in accordance with section 9.6.0 of this bylaw and with notice to town meeting members. Such regulations shall address facade and exterior building treatment, including the style and sizes of all signage affixed to buildings. So they already have that within their jurisdiction.
But right, but they don't have any regulations to support it, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
So the digging I found on it, this all goes back to Convenient MD. No one liked how that sign was. So I looked into it because we all came into a meeting after that sign went up, and we all said to each other, we didn't have a hearing on that. How did that sign go up? Because the only sign that should have been allowed, semi by right, is the one facing Papagino's. The one facing Terry Ave and facing Cambridge Street shouldn't have been allowed. They're not business use, business entrance sides of the building. So like, how did they get that without coming to us for a variance? So we did some digging at that time, and it was, well, it already went through the planning board approval process because it's in the town center PDD. It was allowed by that. So this wouldn't essentially change much of that happening unless the planning board's paying attention to the signs that are on there. You know, was there an error in the process? I don't know. I'm not going to go back and watch their meetings and look through all that, you know, but going forward, yeah, they need to have some guidelines. You said they have revised guidelines in 2009.
Well, the original guidelines, this is the town center design, it's the document that's
Yeah.
theirs, it's online. And this is the one that does not have, it goes through all the different specifications on size and all the rest of that, except for it does not have a signage section.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No signage section to that.
They're allowed to just decide as they feel.
However,
is
with
appropriate.
this bylaw,
Yeah.
along with that comes the signage district guidelines
Mm-hmm.
that would be adopted by the planning board.
Yeah.
It's their documents like the other ones are. And in this, it gives size, specification, materials, all of that sort of thing. And so, given this bylaw and these guidelines, then Convenient MD would not happen again.
So,
Guidelines are not going to help you.
If it came before this board, that wouldn't happen.
That's right.
Well, I didn't even live here then, so I'm sorry, I can't help with that one.
So
But
what I'm hearing is that the planning board dropped the ball.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anything. I
Why
wasn't
should we
here.
allow the planning board to, assume our area of what we consider to be somewhat expertise
Yeah,
Why should we allow that?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't think it's appropriate for me to speak to that, plus I don't know anything about it.
But do you hear me?
I do,
In other words,
I hear what you're saying.
Anybody who has lived in this town for any number of years would look at that building and say that was a mistake. And that was a mistake by people who had the power and didn't use that power appropriately. So you want us to give them the power to make decisions with
Well-
your guidelines and
Well, here's what I'm suggesting to you. The bylaw specifies size, all of that is in the use table. So if you take a look at the bylaw, and the planning board has no discretion, nor does any board have, like, you have the discretion on dimensional things, for example, to have variance. If people don't like what's in the bylaw, they would appeal it and come to you for a variance, right? That is how the process works. The bylaw, if adopted by town meeting, would set the rules, the regulation of what could happen. The guidelines aren't going to set the rules. What they're going to do is set some of the detail of that. And it goes through things like, what's the application process to get a permit? It's when we talk about square footage, how is that measured? I don't know if you all had a chance to look at this, but it's pretty much an very easy to understand piece of documentation that the planning board, we've done our best. We've got a good draft going, but it will get finalized by the planning board, I'm assuming with a public hearing process of some sort, as to how they're going to move forward with that. But the regulations themselves, that's what we're talking about now. That's what's before town meeting. Those regulations are not up for debate if they're adopted. They are regulations. So in answer to your question, it's not a trust test, because these regulations specify many of those things that would not allow that building to happen again.
So I just have a quick question.
For signage,
I'm
sorry.
just a little confused here, maybe. So are we saying right now that the town center overlay PDD, that there's no sign bylaws in there, and that's how community and MD?
No, there's no guidelines for them to follow. So really, the only guidelines that are in place is what our current signage bylaws are,
Okay.
which there's only,
Well,
I think there's only 3 different types. There's BG, there's
No, there's-
business, industrial, and there is even a specification
and
for residential.
RO too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
so there are
doesn't
four,
vary a lot
there are
much.
4 different zoning districts.
Well, on the arrow,
In-
you're not going to have signs.
Well,
There are the real estate signs and stuff.
we also have a veterinary's office, a veterinarian whose their place of business is in RO. So there are different districts within the town center. And in answer to your question, yes, there are like 4 of them.
So how did Convenient MD get those signs? Obviously, they're not by right with the,
It went through planning board site plan approval. So because it was a new building and because it was going by the town center PDD, normally you can't put a building that close to the road.
Sure.
But that's part of the town
That's-
center overlay
That's what they want on
PDD.
the overlay.
Yeah,
So-
so because it's a new building anyways, it has to go before the planning board for a site plan approval. What I read
Why don't you
before.
just amend the PDD to include the sign regulations? I don't,
So the-
isn't that a remedy here or no?
These sign regulations that we're proposing right now are for that very specific, the first thing that's going to happen, there are 2 bylaws. One is to adopt the town center signage district. That's number 1. And 2 is to adopt these bylaws, which would apply to that district. Now, as we went through before, the town center overlay actually has some areas that are not part of this district, like the car wash, for example, right? So this only goes up to the plaza where Jimmy's is.
Yep.
And from the high school to there. These regulations are the regulations that would dictate what can and can't happen in the town center, in that area. If somebody wants to do something different from that, then they come in dimensionally, like that size of that sign, they'd have to come to you.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I'm getting at is
I didn't
obviously,
pay then.
obviously, convenient MD was a mistake in some way, and we already have bylaws that we follow. I don't understand why we need more bylaws for that area if we're already following IG and VG bylaws.
Yeah.
The-
I actually liked Mark's question on it of why wouldn't you amend the PDD and put it into that? Because the PDD is part of the bylaws. I mean, it's kind of a weird question to be asking now at this point,
Right, I mean,
rather than creating a signage district with one bylaw and creating the signage
This
district with
was-
the second bylaw, amending the PDD and putting that into.
so this approach has been vetted through the initial representatives on ZBA. It's been town council. It's been with planning board. It's been with the building inspector, et cetera. And this approach was felt to be the best because we've tried a lot of things in the past and nothing worked. So the thing is to take it in manageable chunks. This is that manageable chunk we're trying to do. And we're going to put in this new bylaw for this section of town. And this will determine what is and is not allowed in that section of town.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm confused a little bit. Every business is allowed a sign, so you're saying there's going to be some businesses that aren't going to be allowed signs?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the businesses in the town center will have to follow if they are going to have to follow the town center signage regulations. So if a business is coming in or if business is going to make a major change and they want to have a sign, a wall sign, then in this, it'll tell you how big the wall sign has to be, where it can go, whether it can come up close to the roof, all that, it'll be in here. And so they have to follow these rules. That's what this is telling you. If one of the things it does is it allows we talked about this before. A lot of the problems for the town center businesses is that nobody can see them because they're whipping by on Cambridge Street. So this will allow there to be pole signs and monument signs as long as they follow certain regulations. And some of the regulations are around the footage along the road, how much footage they have to have along the road before they can have one of those signs, the height of those signs, the width of the signs, how they're landscaped, the fact that they need to be landscaped or...
Monuments.
So you're saying they're going to, those regs allow monument signs?
Did you guys read these?
I had an opportunity, but I'm asking you directly, ma'am.
These allow for pole signs and monument signs only for 3 or more businesses, and they have to have a certain amount of street footage in order for that to happen.
Right.
Again, because there are different ways when people are traveling and they're on 3A, that's a different kind of need for signage. And this is to help these businesses. It's going to make it look better, it's going to clean it up, and it's going to help these businesses where people can find them. Now, for those people who've been in Burlington for a really long time, you may wonder why you need to have it, because everybody knows that these businesses are there. Well, that's not the case. Everybody does not know these businesses are there. So the businesses are saying, we need help. So this is trying to balance the need of the businesses, the need of the town, and trying to coordinate something so that we can revitalize that area and improve the appearance of it as we do so. It's going to happen over time.
Quite frankly, I don't think that's going to improve.
Everybody's on a GPS system, your phone or your...
But you have to know a business, if for a GPS, you have to know that you're looking for...
Town, you're cluttering up the
The downtown area.
I think that based on what we've heard from when we've talked to the consultants, when we've talked to businesses, again, this has been going on for quite a while, and we've been working on this for quite a while with representation from all these different groups coming in, trying to strike a balance of what is going to help the businesses, what's going to improve the look of downtown, and all of that stuff kind of put together. We've used professionals to figure out what is going to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish based on the master plan as well as the vision put together for the town center. And they are helped guide us with this, and this is what we've come up with.
Sounds inconsistent with what our philosophy has been about, which is to make it a walking downtown area. To make it walking, you don't put up monuments and pole signs and make it look like Las Vegas.
Well, monument and pole signs will not make it look like
walking
Las Vegas at
center.
all.
We want to be more like Lexington, or, you see, and
I think
we
we've got
can't be like that
Yeah.
if
The reality
We're
of
putting
the
up
reality of Burlington's town center is such that we have existing buildings there that are not up on the road. They're not going anywhere. If you take a look at either the plaza where Jimmy's is, that's all way back from the road. You can't even see what's in there from the road. If you take a look at the plaza where Schoolhouse Ice Cream is, then unless you knew what stores were in there, aside from a couple, you wouldn't know what it is what is in there. And to your point about GPS, I agree with you. But a lot of people don't know what businesses are there. They don't know that there's a pizza place there, or they don't know that there's a barber there. We talked about that last time, or a shoe repair. But there are ways of handling that a lot of communities who've upgraded their look have done when they have the reality that they don't have a Lexington Main Street. We don't have that. So what are we going to do in order to improve what we have to make it more? We talked about walkability. There are sidewalks not by the road, but there are areas where you can get from one place to another in front of the area by Schoolhouse Ice Cream, where they have broadened it. They put tables there. You can get from there and walk down through what used to be the Chinese restaurant, which sign under this would have to come down.
Sunluck, Ginger.
And then, and then get over to
Hating
Dunkin'
myself.
Donuts or any of the rest. This is only dealing with the signage part. The walkability, there are a number of groups that are working on how to make that happen. But that's not what this is trying to do. We're just dealing with the town center signage to improve what we have there. We have stores that have so many signs on it, you don't even know what sign. They have duplicate signs. They have,
But even with a monument sign, they're still going to have a storefront sign.
yes, they will.
Right.
And if you look at the,
There's so many curb cuts on that road going in and out of there. A monument sign is the vision. You're not going to have a vision. You're going to be blocked looking to get out. both directions.
that's part of the,
There's dimensional things
Yeah.
of where you can put that in relation to an
Right.
opening, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So you cannot block the view, either, you can't block a walkway, you can't block the view of it.
That's solely on the landlord would absorb
If they're-
that.
Well, it depends on how the,
Not the business.
No, so this has to go through site plan review. Any of these proposed things, it would have to go through a site plan review with the planning board, correct?
correct?
Okay. So as far as that, so they'd have to go for a site plan. Do you have a fee schedule adopted in there? I forget
The fee
now. I know I've read through it a bunch of times.
The permits are $50,
So it's still the same permit cost? Okay.
and that's all it is. Whatever you want a permit for, it's $50.
Yeah. But they have to go through site plan review with planning board, so that's the difference now. That would be the difference between what we have now and going forward.
There are certain things that can be done by right, like if you're going to put a wall sign up, as long as it meets the dimensional requirements and that sort of thing, those will just happen
Okay.
by right.
Yeah, what are these dimensionals? Because every.
They're all in
Yeah,
in
We
this.
gave it to you in the packet.
That's one size fits all, though.
No, it's not. It's not. It's
We go by
It's a percentage, it's square footage. Again, I had hoped you would have had a chance to read this. It's all in here, where it talks about size, here, a window sign, for example, the maximum sign area would be 30% of the glass area on each window, so you don't have people just plastering everything on their windows. Talk about illuminated signs and non-illuminated signs and where they can be. So if you have a non-illuminated sign 2 feet back from the window, it doesn't count as one of your, because you only have a certain number of square feet that you can have for your signage.
Yep.
It does not count towards it if it's back 2 feet, because you might have like a poster or something in your store. You don't want that to count as signage, and that sort of thing. No neon, no electronic lights, and that sort of thing. So it's all in here. It's all here in terms of the dimensions and the
Basically, all these
requirements.
signs are just going to get smaller, it sounds like.
Well,
Like if you take the, very simple sign, Ray's Barber Shop, red, white, and blue. Scott comes in there, Ray's out, Scott comes in, his sign's going to get smaller.
well, I mean, there's a purpose, that businesses have a purpose for sign. One is to indicate what business is there. The dimensional requirements will do is that total sign area is defined as a certain percentage based on a formula, and it includes your wall sign, the flat sign that you have, and then window signs as well, so that you're not oversigned. I think in the signage business, if you talk to the organizations that do this for a living, they call it visual pollution, because there's too many signs, nobody reads them, it's too much, it doesn't look good, it's not effective. In order to be effective, there are formulas of what kind of signage you should have in order for signs to be effective. So this is all kind of incorporated into these calculations, which are specified in the bylaw.
I would say, responding to that pole signs and monument signs, in my estimation, are visual pollution.
In certain areas, if they're not done well, I probably agree with you, but I think there are requirements here that will help that not be the case. Again, we've based this on kind of best practice. We've based it on consultants. We've based it on what we heard from our businesses, what we've heard from different committees in the town, and we're just trying to do something about upgrading the
I
the
applaud you.
visual.
I said that the last time
Yeah.
I was before you, to try to do something better, but it sounds like,
If you take a look at
and
what,
I still question why you're not simply, in other words, really what you're talking about is standards, dimensional requirements for signs, right? And why not simply amend the PDD to allow that to occur?
go ahead.
The sign bylaws, so the totality of this is a new sign bylaw that will set up definitions, consistent definitions of signs, and consistent regulation around town for signage districts. So we started with simply the town center signage district, because the town of Burlington does not look the same. If you leave the
Can I
town
interrupt you
center,
for just 1 second? You want to just pull your microphone to face you, just so people at home can hear you? Sorry, I'm
The-
sorry for interrupting.
right now, the signage is determined by what's in the general bylaw. And that was done a number of years ago. That is almost, that and the signage bylaw in the zoning bylaw they're almost exactly the same. There are a few differences. But the idea is here that not everything is the same around town. What might be BD or BG or IR in one part of town, maybe that has a kind of different look, and maybe you want something different in a different area of town. We have a lot of smaller districts around town where the businesses could also use signage, but they can't, they're stuck in the mold that we have. And they might be a good place besides, in addition to, so this is for the town, we're dealing right now with a specific area in town, the town center overlay. If there are other districts in town where either the businesses would like something different and they would like to modernize, and they might want to go to the planning board and say, we'd like to create a signage district that covers this area. Or perhaps the residents would say, we'd like to create a signage district, knowing that any sign that's, any definition in the new bylaw, in the bylaw for that district would not take effect immediately. If you do something in the general bylaw, then that takes effect immediately and there's no grace period. But the idea was to address an issue that's been talked about for a lot of years. A lot of people have spent a lot of time in meetings trying to come up with something that fit the entire town. And that just doesn't work when you have the diverse areas of business that we have around town. So, and the reason that we didn't go and change the town center overlay was because that's set up, it has its set of regulations, and that was not something that we thought we could just plop something in for signage, when the discussions over the years have been to simply try to do something for the whole town, and it just doesn't work. When we met initially with town council, she recommended that we do this in this manner, so that in different parts of town where the look is different, whether if you're along Middlesex Turnpike, that's a whole different look than what you have up here. And the businesses, the buildings, everything is different. So try to set it up kind of like PDDs, only these are the signage areas. And it gives you more flexibility, and it gives the businesses and perhaps the communities around them a little bit more flexibility going forward. None of this is going to happen in many of our lifetimes. There's not going
Guess
to
I
be a
don't-
change.
You keep wanting to move on to other
No.
areas or other districts.
No.
No. I just, yeah, let's be,
We're stuck on the town center
No, no,
because you
I-
had
I
to
get that.
start
You
someplace.
seem to be using this proposal to shoehorn other,
no, actually, no.
and if you could just let me finish,
Okay.
right? I'm just saying that I don't see, in other words, the town center is the focal point of what we're trying to get a handle on, right? That's what y'all were involved in, right? And I don't see any other part of the town being that much different, that it requires a level of, micromanaging with respect to signage. I don't see it. I don't see the need for all these different districts. It just complicates
I
this
under-
matter. It's more regulation, it's more bureaucracy.
Red tape.
It's something that we all rail against, and you're promoting it, so.
So I guess that's certainly one way to look at it. But I think when we started this, the thought was, the reason why past efforts did not work was because everybody wanted to create one set of rules for the entire town. And we talked and we interviewed people who were on those committees as we initiated this group. And one of the things we learned was that everybody had different needs. The areas were totally different. Sally mentioned Mall Road. the needs for signage down there is different from what it is over by Sullivan's Funeral Home, which is different from what's over at Lakash's, and then you've got these little mall areas. So the question was, how do you do one set of rules that will go for the entire town? And the answer we got back loud and clear was you can't. So as we were grappling with that, what we came up with, and Sally's correct in that town council suggested that you take it in chunks, that you create a structure so that you can start with one of the areas, and we chose the town center because that was the one that seemed to be most broken. We start with one area, and we create a structure in this bylaw by having all the definitions of what signage is, et cetera, and we define them in this bylaw, even though we know certain things aren't going to be in town center at all. It's just, what are they? And then we come up with these guidelines for the town center that are appropriate for the town center and what we're trying to do there. At some point in the future, and this is from the Chamber of Commerce, loud and clear, we heard there are other areas where they feel there is a need to create and maybe another signage district. We are not talking about that now. We don't know what that's going to be. We don't know where it's going to be, what's going to constitute what it is. We just started with what we knew. There's a whole other project. If this goes through, there's probably another project based on what the town and the businesses and feel is necessary as to whether we commission another committee to look at what the next district's going to be. We're not saying there is one. I don't know what's going to be. In the meantime, the zoning signage districts bylaws that exist today, which is only by what zoning district you're in. If you're in IG, this is what the rules are. If you're in RO, this is what the rules are. Those will continue on, and if things are a problem, then that will surface itself, and then there can be another committee formed.
All right. Do you have anything new to add? To everything?
I think
Well-
that we answered, I went through and listened to the meeting again.
Okay.
And as I went through and I took notes on the questions that you all had, one was around what the signage regulations are for the downtown now, and they're right here in the zoning bylaws, and they're different for each of the different areas. And then you asked about that whole thing about your variances and what oversees. So I think we've handled all the questions that you asked last time.
Okay. I'm going to go down the line here. Charles, anything
I don't
else you
think
want to add?
Anything else to add? No. Good.
Mark? Joe?
Using me, I'm all set.
John? All right. I think you answered all my questions. Looked at the zoning map, looked at stuff I brought up today, so I guess we will take an advisory vote from here on this now. So, does anyone want to make a motion for support on this? So we can vote? Voting has to be in the positive.
I'll make a motion to support the EBRC Town Center signage subcommittee warrant article.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to support the presentation from the ZBRC Town Center Signage Subcommittee. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain?
Thank you.
05.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the minutes from December 17th. Did everyone get a chance to review those minutes?
Yep.
Anyone have any questions? Any motions?
Make a motion to approve the minutes, December 17th.
Who's seconded?
Second.
Oh, Joe. All those, motion was made and seconded to approve the minutes from December 17th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. All right, any other matters? Any other motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motions are made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.